Vamos lá? Boa tarde, pessoal. Muito bem-vindos à parte da tarde do nosso Research Challenge, CFA Institute Research Challenge, etapa Brasil. Vocês já são vencedores, isso não é só por falar, não. Vocês realmente são vencedores porque nós tivemos esse ano um recorde de inscrições de equipes, então quem está aqui hoje de manhã e agora à tarde já é realmente, né, num grupo qualificado e já superou bastante, né, muitas outras equipes para poder estar aqui. Então, parabéns por terem chegado aqui. Meu nome é Mauro Miranda, sou o CFA Chapter desde 2006, sou voluntário e membro aqui da CFA Society Brazil desde 2010, já fui presidente da CFA Society Brazil. Hoje eu tenho um cargo que é mais regional, América Latina e Caribe, junto ao CFA, mas é sempre um prazer estar aqui com vocês e participar com os meus colegas aqui do CFA, dessa competição que é tão importante. A gente criou essa competição, na verdade aqui no Brasil, começou um ano depois da competição global, então nós somos também pioneiros aí junto com as outras societies do mundo para fazer essa competição, e depois a gente teve muitas cópias aqui no Brasil, né? Muitas outras competições como essa, mas nós somos a original e é sempre bom ver bastante gente inscrita, bastante gente se envolvendo e cada vez mais participando. Não só os alunos, mas também faculty advisors e mentores de cada equipe. O CFA tem crescido bastante no Brasil, já somos aí provavelmente no final de ano, uns 1.300, 1.350 pessoas com CFA do Brasil. Taxa de crescimento de cerca de 12%, 13% ao ano, que é bem acima da taxa global de crescimento do CFA, mais que o dobro. E Brasil é realmente é a principal society na América Latina, né, em termos de tamanho, número de membros, e crescimento muito maior do que Estados Unidos, Canadá, apesar de que eles têm bem mais CFAs do que a gente. Né? Temos um longo caminho ainda a percorrer dessa parte de educação em alto nível sobre finanças. Tá? Acho que um grande passo é o engajamento com alunos, o engajamento com universidades, e o fruto disso é justamente essa competição de hoje. Então, vocês alunos aprendam bastante, já aprenderam bastante ao fazer esse trabalho, né, de valuation, continuem aprendendo. Valuation é só uma pequena parte do que é o CFA, né, do que é o programa CFA, e tem uma vida longa depois do programa CFA, como membro, participando de eventos, participando de todas as atividades que a gente faz. A gente divide a CFA Society Brazil nas 3 áreas, que são as 3 áreas que o CFA trabalha globalmente. Credentialing, que tem tudo a ver com aquilo, né, tudo a ver com as pessoas que ainda não são CFA, então o Research Challenge faz parte dessa área de credentialing, curso preparatório, distribuição de bolsas de estudo, então essa é uma primeira parte. Member Value é a segunda parte, que aí já trata dos membros, das pessoas que já são CFA. E a parte de advocacy, que é basicamente relação com reguladores e tentar influenciar para melhor sempre a regulação que é feita aqui no Brasil para mercado financeiro, mercado de capitais. E aí a gente fala de integridade de mercado, de internacionalização e, né, e bastante de ética, como vocês já sabem. Todos vocês estão, né, seguindo o código de ética do CFA Institute ao participar da competição aqui. Uma das áreas importantes que a gente tem, como eu falei, na verdade é uma mescla de várias áreas aí, mas a gente tem alguns projetos especiais e tem um que eu queria mencionar e convidar a Ruth para falar um pouquinho, que é um projeto chamado Young Women in Investing. Então a gente tem uma situação não tão boa de representação de mulheres no mercado financeiro brasileiro. Isso funciona para o mundo inteiro e isso é um tema que todo mundo sabe que é um tema candente. A Ruth vai passar alguns dados daqui a pouquinho, mas a gente está bem atrás aí do que seria o ideal, minimamente, em termos de representação de mulheres no mercado financeiro. O CFA Institute tomou essa iniciativa de falar de diversidade e inclusão e escolheu diversidade de gênero como sendo a primeira bandeira, né, até para pegar mais conhecimento sobre o tema e trabalhar em outras áreas também. Mas a diversidade de gênero é muito importante. Young Women Investing é uma iniciativa muito interessante que a Ruth agora vai comentar e acho que vocês vão gostar. As meninas, prestem atenção porque isso é para vocês, isso é para o ano que vem, é para muito em breve e daqui a pouco eu volto e falo mais um pouquinho, mas eu queria apresentar a Ruth Walter, que é membro do board da CFA Society Brazil, voluntária, CFA, para falar de Young Women in Investing. Ruth.
Boa tarde, obrigada a todos. Bem, então eu vim aqui falar um pouco sobre esse projeto que se chama Young Women in Investment, o YouWin. O objetivo desse programa, como o Mauro já adiantou, é incentivar a entrada de mulheres jovens universitárias no mercado financeiro. Como surgiu essa ideia foi justamente a partir de uma pesquisa que o CFA Institute fez há alguns anos atrás e viu que no mundo todo tem apenas 20% dos CFAs que são mulheres. E essa estatística no Brasil é menor ainda, apenas 10% dos membros, né, cerca de 1.300 pessoas, são mulheres. Então, como é que vai funcionar o You-Win? A primeira edição vai ser no ano que vem, vai consistir em um curso de 1 mês de aula intensiva para mulheres, seguido de um estágio numa das instituições parceiras. BTG Pactual é uma delas. Então, as inscrições vão começar ano que vem, no primeiro semestre. O curso vai ser em julho, durante as férias, e o estágio no segundo semestre. Então, gostaria de convidar todas as mulheres para se candidatarem e também, né, indicarem quem vocês gostariam que participasse. É isso, muito obrigada.
Essa é realmente uma iniciativa muito importante. Ela começou na Índia, é patrocinada pelo CFA Institute, e a gente está trazendo para o Brasil sob a liderança da Márcia Sadzevistos, que esteve aqui de manhã, da Ruth, e aí também, obviamente, daqui a pouco eu apresento, mas o Gustavo Moreira como vice-presidente da Society, e o Felipe Nogueira, que é presidente da Society, não pôde estar aqui hoje. E a ideia é que, justamente, né, não é um preparatório para o CFA de jeito nenhum, é um curso específico para as mulheres, para colocação no mercado financeiro, e aí saindo do curso, as mulheres já têm um estágio aqui no BTG, por exemplo, é um dos parceiros dessa iniciativa, outros bancos, assets aqui em São Paulo, já vão receber cada uma das formadas aí no curso da CFA Society Brazil. Então é uma iniciativa bem interessante. Bom, vamos ao que interessa hoje. Mais uma vez, bem-vindos aí para o Research Challenge. Essa já é a nossa, Gustavo, você vai me dizer, 12ª edição, né? Muito bem. Então, bastante tempo que a gente já faz. E é sempre um prazer ver vocês trabalhando, né, bastante, né, nesse valuation, né? No valuation de uma empresa. É um trabalho grande, enorme, mas é muito gratificante, independentemente de quem ganhe. Claro, todo mundo quer ganhar, mas independentemente de quem ganhe, você já aprendeu bastante, já ganhou bastante ao trabalhar nisso aí. Você aprendeu sobre trabalhar em equipe, você aprendeu sobre gerenciar conflitos, provavelmente, porque eu duvido que vocês tenham feito esse trabalho sem brigar entre si. Não, o pessoal aderindo aí já, né? Você aprendeu sobre valuation, você aprendeu sobre vários temas que talvez você não tinha visto tanto na sala de aula e aí conseguiu explorar um pouco mais a fundo com a ajuda do seu Faculty Advisor aqui na competição. Então, parabéns a todos. Eu queria apresentar o Gustavo Moreira, que, como eu falei, é o vice-presidente da CFA Society Brazil e já cuida do Research Challenge há algum tempo, então mesmo antes de ser vice-presidente, mas aí ele, né, permaneceu, né, ainda como vice-presidente, permaneceu tocando o Research Challenge, vocês devem ter recebido e-mail dele ou algo assim, e é ele que toca aqui a competição. Vai falar para vocês aí sobre regras, rever algumas coisas e falar sobre essa parte da tarde, tá? Então, sem mais delongas, Gustavo Moreira, por favor.
Olá, gente, boa tarde. Prazer estar aqui com vocês. O que eu estou falando aqui para vocês foi o que eu falei de manhã, tá? Então, quem competiu de manhã está competindo com as mesmas facilidades, dificuldades e nível de conhecimento, tá? Bom dia, meu nome é Gustavo, sou vice-presidente aqui da Society. Como o Mauro disse, eu cuido de algumas atividades de credentialing e a atividade que eu tenho mais carinho mesmo é o CFA Challenge, porque é uma oportunidade muito bacana que eu vejo para vocês, alunos, se exporem a mentores profissionais de investimento, se exporem a juiz, grader, tem um crescimento pessoal, profissional, técnico, acadêmico e de gestão de pessoas fabuloso. Então, só de vocês estarem aqui nessa final, vocês são vencedores, tá? Até nesse sentido, eu vou pedir uma salva de palmas a vocês. Vocês merecem estar aqui, tá? O nível do trabalho foi muito bom e a competição foi bastante intensa, tá? Eu vou primeiro começar aqui falando dos agradecimentos. Eu primeiro quero agradecer aos nossos patrocinadores, a XP e a S&P. Agradeço também o Matheus Carneiro, que ele é chefe global de RH aqui do BTG Pactual, é um CFA Charter Holder e nos cedeu aqui o auditório novamente, está permitindo a gente fazer a competição aqui. Agradeço aos juízes, que também estão aqui um sábado ensolarado, passando aqui algumas horas conversando com vocês, fazendo perguntas, julgando, que é um trabalho bastante difícil, porque os trabalhos estão muito bons. Primeiro, Luiz Ribeiro, ele foi o 5º CFA aqui do Brasil. Na época dele, recebia uma carta avisando que tinha passado. Hoje em dia já é por e-mail. Ele já está aqui no... Tá, eu já vou falar que é o 6º ano. É final da década de 90, mais ou menos. 2000 e pouco, na virada do século. É o 6º ano que o Luiz é judge aqui na competição, então ele já carrega bastante experiência nisso. E ele é gestor de renda variável na DWS. Tá? O Fernando Fontoura é o 3º ano que ele é juiz. Ele é sócio fundador da RV Persevera, sócio fundador e gestor da Persevera. Tá? Em seguida, eu tenho o Fernando Radba, que ele é Head de Sociais e Crédito do Santander, com MBA em Wharton. O Rafael Junqueira, MBA em Michigan e Equities Research do Santander, todos CFA Charter Holders. Por último, eu vou ser juiz também. Eu já tenho experiência de 6 anos em Equity Research, já fui grader, já fui mentor, juiz, Factor Advisor. Eu já fui todas as possibilidades do research, já fui juiz global, juiz regional, juiz regional, grader regional, todos os locais. Aproveito aqui para agradecer a Raia Drogasil. A Raia Drogasil foi a empresa alvo, a Subject Company, voluntariamente. Teve bastante trabalho, não ganhou nada, e eles fizeram um trabalho bastante interessante, respondendo rapidamente as perguntas que vocês mandaram para eles. Foram centenas, tá? E eles responderam. Recomendo que vocês façam a prova do CFA. Vocês estão pegando um primeiro gosto do que é o CFA Institute, do que é a CFA Society. E fazer a prova do CFA é muito, muito positivo, porque, como diz o Financial Times, é o padrão ouro das certificações de finanças. Então, se vocês querem trabalhar, seguir nesse ramo, recomendo que vocês façam a certificação do CFA. Se vocês quiserem fazer logística, marketing, liderança, você tem outros caminhos que vão te dar os skills, as competências adequadas. Tá? O Challenge, é um prazer estar aqui. Há 2 anos atrás, a gente teve 17 equipes inscritas. Ano passado, a gente multiplicou em 150%, foi para 43 equipes inscritas, foi um recorde. E esse ano a gente está com 52 equipes inscritas. Tá? É um número que eu falo com muito gosto, com muito carinho. A nossa competição é a maior competição do hemisfério ocidental e a gente só perde para um país. Vocês imaginam qual país que é maior que o nosso? A gente ganha da China porque eles são fragmentados. A gente só perde para a Índia, que tem 1 bilhão de pessoas. Então, sinceramente, eu estou muito contente com esse resultado. E também mostra que vocês estando aqui na final, vocês competiram com muita gente boa. Vocês estão aqui, vocês são vencedores. Obviamente, vocês querem ser os 2 primeiros, né, que vão para Nova York. Mas só de estar aqui, coloca no currículo, posta nas redes sociais que vocês merecem, o que vocês fizeram deve ser relatado no seu currículo, nas mídias sociais. Então, em 2009, a gente teve equipes do Sul, Sudeste, Centro-Oeste e Nordeste, de 12 estados diferentes, 225 alunos, foram 49 professores, 52 mentores profissionais de investimentos, 60 graders. Então, a gente teve um envolvimento de um pouco mais de 400 pessoas nesse challenge. Tá? E o resultado disso só foi possível porque a gente tem uma equipe bastante forte. Quero agradecer aqui ao nosso staff. O Carlo não pôde estar aqui. A Pietra também não pôde estar aqui. A Vivian está aqui, ela participou bastante no challenge. A Nádia também foi muito importante. A Denise, que está organizando aqui o evento. A Márcia Saides e Vícios, que estava aqui de manhã, tinha um compromisso, não pode estar. E a Ruth também, por todas as contribuições que vocês estão fazendo. Então, além do ineditismo desse número de 52 equipes, essa final que a gente está fazendo aqui tem 10 finalistas. Originalmente, o plano seriam 8 finalistas, mas como a gente teve um empate triplo em 8º colocado, a gente está com 10 finalistas. 5 equipes já apresentaram de manhã e vocês 5 vão apresentar à tarde. Tá? Uma coisa que eu quero deixar claro que vocês estão competindo com as equipes da manhã. A gente pode ter 2 vencedores que vêm da manhã, 2 vencedores da tarde ou 1 de cada turno. Tá? Nesse sentido, uma coisa que eu peço a vocês, se a gente tiver algumas universidades a mais, em vez de ter 2 vencedores que eu levo para Nova York com tudo pago, eu tenho 3 no ano que vem. Então, se vocês puderem me ajudar divulgando o challenge em outras universidades e dentro da universidade para vocês continuarem, é bom para os próximos alunos, porque você vai ter um pouco a mais de competição, digamos 10% a mais de competição, mas 50% a mais de vagas para ir para os Estados Unidos. Então, é uma relação ganha-ganha. Então, se vocês puderem me ajudar nesse sentido, vai ser muito, muito positivo. A gente vai sortear daqui a pouco a ordem das apresentações, as 5. O primeiro nome que sair vai ser o primeiro a apresentar, o segundo, terceiro, quarto, quinto. Uma coisa que eu vou pedir para vocês, digamos, o primeiro apresentou, vocês estão livres para passear aqui na região, mas eu vou pedir para 4h20 vocês estarem de volta aqui que a gente vai anunciar o vencedor. O segundo, terceiro e quarto, a gente tem salinhas que vocês podem ficar treinando, sentado, descansando, salinhas que vocês podem ficar isolados para preparar para a apresentação. Durante a apresentação, só pode estar na sala, obviamente, os juízes, os familiares daquela equipe e a equipe. Não pode ter ninguém de outra equipe na sala, tá? Porque se tiver alguém de fora da equipe, algum outro convidado na sala, quem está de fora, a equipe de quem está de fora pode ser desqualificada, tá? Então, se agora a Universidade X vai apresentar, só pode ter convidado da Universidade X. Durante a apresentação, ninguém pode se manifestar. Tá? A apresentação vai durar exatamente 10 minutos. Quando tiver 5 minutos decorridos, a gente vai ter uma plaquinha ali na ponta que vai ser levantada avisando que faltam 5 minutos. Quando faltar 1 minuto, vai ter uma placa avisando que falta 1 minuto. E no momento que o alarme disparar, vocês têm que parar de falar, porque não pode falar mais nada. Então, vocês vão apresentar por 10 minutos. Em seguida, tem mais 10 minutos de perguntas e respostas, que também tem o alarme, tocou o alarme, encerra a atividade. Tá? Vocês estão concorrendo todos em pé de igualdade. Tá? Vai ser uma apresentação ruim, vai ser uma apresentação difícil, vocês vão estar nervosos, vocês vão esquecer uma palavra em inglês, vão esquecer uma expressão. Aí vale o trabalho em equipe. Tá? Você vê que seu colega esqueceu alguma coisa, ajuda ele. E isso é igual para todo mundo. Te garanto que se você perguntar a todo mundo que sai aqui dessa sala, fala, eu errei, podia ter feito melhor, não tem problema. Tá? Acontece, está todo mundo competindo dessa forma. E entra aqui, na verdade, com energia positiva. Tá? Entra aqui para aproveitar, porque é uma experiência que vocês estão tendo que é fabulosa. Tá? E esse aprendizado que vocês estão tendo agora é uma coisa que vocês vão levar para o resto da vida. Tá? Então, aproveite, tira muita foto e publica nas redes sociais. Então, agora a gente vai fazer o sorteio. Tá? A Vivian vai me ajudar aqui. Eu vou mostrar para vocês o nome das 5 universidades que estão aqui, para mostrar que entraram, e a gente vai mostrar as 5 universidades saindo. Deixa eu mostrar aqui que está vazio. UFSCar. Dobrar 2 vezes. Unicamp. Piracicaba. ITA. Poli da USP. Então, agora, se eu puder pedir uma ajuda da Ruth, se puder tirar aqui e sortear, então, a primeira universidade que sair vai apresentar em seguida e depois a gente vai em sequência. Tá? USP Piracicaba. Mostra ali para. ITA. Então, USP Piracicaba é a primeira, ITA é a segunda a apresentar. UFSCar é a terceira. Unicamp é a quarta. E Poli é a quinta a apresentar. Tá? O que eu vou pedir para vocês ficarem atentos, tá? As equipes quem não é a primeira vai para as salinhas, mas fica atento que a gente está conseguindo antecipar. Tá? Então, a gente tem o cronograma que vocês receberam por e-mail, que está nas televisões lá fora, mas a gente talvez consiga antecipar 5, 10, 15, 20 minutos, principalmente o pessoal que está lá no final. Tá? É isso, boa sorte. Então, a primeira equipe, vou pedir para ficar aqui e começar. Tá? Boa sorte a todos.
So, hello everyone. We are here to talk about Raia Drogasil. So, Raia Drogasil is a company divided in 6 groups. 3 are done pharmacies such as Drogasil, Droga Raia, and Nofre. The other ones are specialties, PBM, and services. The revenues breakdown, we see that 95% are pharmacies and 5% come from Farbio. On retail sales mix, we see that brand medications are the most important one, followed by perfumery. On market, we see that its competitors are Pague Menos, Grupo de PSP, Extra Farmas, and Farmácia São João's, but Raia Drogasil is still leading the market.
Oh, okay. So when it comes to industry overview, there are 3 main topics to talk about. The first one is about changes in demand, which involves the increase of the elderly population until 2039 in Brazil and chronic diseases. Secondly, there is dynamics in competition. Innovation and technology are becoming drivers of the pharmaceutical sector. And Brazil is offering a great scenario to develop these, since there is BNDES supports and an increase on competition due to the generics segment expansion and companies' capitalization. Finally, about market trends, Brazil is expected to rise 2 positions in the worldwide pharmaceutical market. And this is a consequence of market growth tendencies in Brazil, having 11% of growth in 2018. Even though we have this significant market in Brazil, a great part of the population don't have access to health services and products, preventing Brazil of being in higher positions.
Raia Drogasil has 4 main advantages in the market. The first one is presence in 22 states with about 2,000 stores all over the country. The second one is the leading position in the domestic market with 12.7%, being 24.4% in the state of São Paulo. Also, there is a huge presence in the Southeast region, which is the company's main market, with 9%. The importance of having the strongest presence in the state of São Paulo is because it is where 27% of pharmaceutical market is concentrated. Also, the company has a decentralized logistics structure with 9 distribution centers in 7 states with more than 100,000 m² of storage capacity. In terms of threats to the expected growth, the industry is scattered, which means that new independent drugstores and the expansion of regional competitors may slow down the company's growth. Besides, small networks organize group buying negotiations to get better bargaining powers with suppliers and increase competitiveness in the market. Also, there is growing demand for generic drugs, which already represents almost 46% of sales, and it has lower prices, which impacts revenues in a bad way. Talking about the national market, it is marketed by independent pharmacies and large chains of traditional pharmacies, which makes the market highly competitive. The company is part of Abra Pharma, whose associates concentrate 42% of drug sales in the country, and Raia Drogasil leads in sales, number of stores, and average revenue per store.
Our recommender for its shares is sell, with a target price of 8.2 Brazilian reais. Our thesis has 4 main pillars: cannibalization, limited growth, average store revenues, and its high multiples. Brazil has almost 90,000 drugstores, the highest number in America. Its ratio per inhabitant is much higher than the recommended, showing how overloaded is this industry here in Brazil. This is already shown in some indicators of Raia Drogasil, such as same-store sales and mature stores growth, which have been decreasing since 2016. The pace of expansion of Raia Drogasil will invariably slow down. The current rhythm of 200 stores a year is, in our view, unsustainable in the midterm. So the store CAGR in the next 10 years will be cut by half. This will imply the same cut in the revenues CAGR.
So, talking a little bit more about average store revenues, we see that today Raia Drogasil has an excellent average store revenue, but they are focused mainly on Southeast with noble and super noble clusters. So we expect, and the company says that in the next years, they will be performing an expansion to North and Northeast regions with new clusters, such as popular and super popular stores, decreasing the average store revenue and decreasing the profit from the company. We can see on the map right here that today they are mainly focused on Southeast and where projections on Northeast are increasing. Talking about multiples right now, we have compared the Raia Drogasil multiples with many food and drugs retail companies, such as in Brazil and United States, and in both cases, the multiples from Raia Drogasil were much higher than its competitors.
The company's return on investments is projected to grow in the next years, as the companies will not need too much outsourced capital to run its operations. On the right, this projection shows a constancy, but it's not bad at all since the company has already the leadership in this indicator. Comparing the main accounts of Raia Drogasil with its competitors, we can see that Raia Drogasil has the best numbers and the best efficiency too. Despite our lower average store revenues projections, the projections for COGS is decreasing too. Thus, the EBITDA margin will grow in the following years. Leverage is a concern for the company since this is growing in the past years, reinforcing our thesis that the expansion will slow down.
So for our valuation model, there were two main drivers. The first one was the changes in the opening matrix. As we said earlier, there is a change on the opening policy for the company. And also the main driver for growth was the annual store openings. We also did a Monte Carlo simulation to account for some uncertainty. So the first step in the change in the opening matrix, we saw there's a shift from the noble stores that give the company a higher revenue per month to the cheaper cluster stores that give them the lower revenue. They do have a higher customer frequency, but a lower average ticket. So we believe that trend to keep going and to slow down the average revenue per store the company brings. So for the last 4 to 5 years, the company had a growing average store revenue, but we believe for the next 5 to 10 years, that will go back to lower levels. As for growth, the company already has 2,000 stores countrywide. We believe the next target is to reach the 3,000 mark. Until then, for the next 5 years, we believe the company will maintain the growth of 200 stores per year, but after that, it will slow down to 100 stores, given that 3,000 stores already takes a big bit of the market. So for our WACC calculations, we use the capital asset pricing model, arriving at a 10.14% WACC. And for perpetuity growth, we used both the inflation rate, long term of 3.5%, and the GDP growth rate of 2.5%, giving us 6%. And also in the Monte Carlo simulation, we use the average store sales, store openings per year, and cost of goods sold variables to input some normal distributions and see how the model will perform. So from 5,000 estimations, 91% returned sell, strengthening our sell position.
So talking a little bit more about risks right now, we listed 10 risks that the company should suffer in the next few years and divided on 3 types, so such as operational, industry, and macroeconomic risks. And we listed the most important from each type. So Brazilian economy, everybody knows that Brazil is suffering a bad economic scenario, but we also know that health industry has an elastic demand. So with the reforms and interest cuts, we believe that the economy of Brazil will not impact so much on Raia Drogasil. Talking about the regulation right now, we know that Brazil is an extremely regulated country, which could impact the pharmaceutical retail market. We also know that political changes may reduce the medication prices and could reduce as well the profit and revenues from the company, decreasing the retail margins. Finally, we're talking about e-commerce. Raia Drogasil acquired Onofre recently and has already shown good numbers on e-commerce with 50% growth on digital clients and 151% growth on digital sales, showing that it's prepared for the new market on pharmaceutical retail. Also, it has a strategy of buy online and pick up at the store.
Summarizing, the Raia Drogasil is a company with good financials and good management, but according to our valuations, it's overvalued by the market, reinforcing our sell recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I want to touch on a point. You mentioned that the last year, the projection for return on invested capital for the last year of your projection is almost 21%, while the weighted average cost of capital is 10.14. So that's a very good spread. And on the other hand, it seems that there's a lot of room for penetration, for new stores, for new openings, for market share gains. So why do you think that the company is not going to be able to open more stores from 2019 and 2029 and so on and forth? Doesn't the company have a huge opportunity yet to open more stores than what you were projecting?
Yeah, we do believe in growth and improvement in the company operation, but we don't think the growth is enough to pay the price the market is valuing right now. We've seen a huge increase in the stock price in the recent months, and we do not believe that to be explainable by the cost. So we think you will grow, you will be a good company, but not at the 105 reais that is priced right now. We think the price tends to come back down to the 80 to 70s price, where it justifies the
But I mean, what is your projection of store openings? How many stores do you project that the company is going to open in the next few years?
For the next 5 years, we believe they will maintain the 200 stores per year. Right now, last year they did 240, but we believe they will go back to the 200 pace for the next 5 years. And for the last 5 years of the 10-year projection, 100 new stores per year.
Why not keep the 200 stores? That's the essence of the question.
We believe they already took everything they could in the São Paulo market. Right now, the only move here would be to focus on the cheaper stores, but we do not believe that should be the where RD excels. So we believe they will have to move their focus to the Northeast, and we believe there is a lower market capacity there. So there's less demand, less buying power. So the company will not have the power it has to expand in São Paulo while moving to other regions.
If I'm not mistaken, your EBITDA margin goes from 8% to almost 12%. Can you explain the cause of that, given that it's expanding in such places that won't be as profitable as current operations?
In our projections, we did look how the company would expand, what would be needed, the capex. So they have a policy of opening distribution centers where they have the most of their stores. So in our projections, we input 2 more distribution centers focused on the new regions they're going to focus on. Right now, those regions don't have the distribution centers, so bringing them would improve the margins, the logistics of the business, and so would impact the EBITDA of the company.
And how did you forecast capex?
Mainly business information, company information. They give us in their materials there was the per store capex, the distribution center capex for the one they built here in Guarulhos recently. So we estimated they will be similar to the ones they have right now. So we could estimate how much they would expand in the new ones.
I would like to ask a few questions about your discount rate. So the first thing that made me a little confused is your beta. You're using a 0.16 beta. Where did you get that?
So we did the whole calculation. So yeah, we got a company beta from the market values. We brought back down, unlevered it to the capital structure, and re-levered it to the target capital structure. That's a low beta because we believe the company is producing a lot of cash right now. So the leverage levels will go down through the years. So when we re-lever the beta, we were looking at a capital structure of around 60 to 70% equity. So that unlevers the beta a little bit.
And that takes me to the next question, which is you have a cost of debt which is higher than the cost of equity. Is it like how do you see that? Does it make sense going forward?
We do see that there is a trend for cheaper capital right now, especially in Brazil. We do believe that the average financing cost will go down through debt, but Hydrogazil generates a lot of cash. It's really enough for them to keep growing without needing the external cash. And we do not see a move, a capex move or an M&A move where they could spend a lot of cash and demand the outsourced debt. So we believe they will rely on their own money since they're generating enough to pay big dividends and also finance themselves.
Okay. But you use like 18.1% cost of debt, right? Do you think it's feasible to see that rate going forward since the risk-free rate in Brazil is trending to I don't know 6 to 7% in the long term?
No, we do not believe that. We believe the those financing costs were from the actual financials from the company, how much they spend on financial costs. But we believe that every instrument in Brazil is going to get cheaper right now, so that should get cheaper, and they also should impact in the financials of the company going forward. That also helps their EBITDA that's been growing through the lower financial costs on the income statement.
Just one question on margin as well. I don't know if you had the time to look into it, but in the third quarter release, when we saw the numbers, I see a big jump in margin, in EBITDA margin, just EBITDA margin, comparing this year to last year. Could you explain to me what happened this year compared to last year?
In our projections?
No, in the actual number that we see for Hydrogazil. There was a jump in margins this year, in the last quarter. I don't know if you know the explanation for that. I mean, it jumped from the actual numbers I'm talking about, from around 7-8% last year to 11-12% this year, the EBITDA margin. I was wondering if you know the explanation for that or not. Yeah, what is jump all about?
This is 24 and 29. Is this jump you say about?
Yeah, this year it's going to happen already. Yeah, that's the jump I'm talking about.
This is a 5-year space.
But if I look at this year, the actual number, that will happen already. I mean, the company has already shown a better margin this year if I look at the third quarter number. And I was wondering if you know the explanation for that or not. Maybe there's no explanation. I don't know.
Not specifically for this topic.
So we can
Carry on.
Okay. And what's the explanation for this jump that we see there in the forecast?
In the last jump.
Yeah, the last jump.
The company's the new cluster operations requires less operations costs, and the cost of goods sold will be lower too. So the EBITDA margin is this the main cause of this jump on the EBITDA margin.
Just one last question from my side. One last question from my side. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but you're quite conservative in terms of growth for the company moving forward compared to the consensus we see out there. Where could you be wrong? I mean, what's the main risk for your recommendation, for the sell recommendation here? Where could the company surprise us and you guys would be wrong?
The company keep growing the same rhythm that it is occurring now. We adjust the assailing to them in 3,000 stores where they will reduce their growth rhythm. Maybe this is the main risk for us.
I think just adding his information, I think the new clusters, we put it a lot on Northeast and North regions because of the expansion. But if the expansion comes with noble and super noble clusters, it actually changes a lot our expectations.
So, good afternoon, everybody. We are the team from ITA, and today we are going to present our investment thesis on Hydrogazil. But what is Hydrogazil and what do they do?
All right, so Raia Drogasil is the largest drugstore chain in Brazil and also the sixth largest retail group in Brazil. And the main activity is the retail sale of medicine. And nowadays, the company has 1,917 stores, divided mainly in Raia and Drogasil stores. These stores are divided in 22 states and are mainly found in São Paulo in the southeast region of Brazil. In 2019, Raia Drogasil had a gross revenue of 16.7 billion reais, divided in 5 types of products: branded medicine, generic medicine, OTC, HC, and services. The company is divided in 5 main brands: Raia, Drogasil, Forbio, Onofre, and RD itself. The company trades in B3's Novo Mercado, and by the time of valuation, the stock was priced at 103.81 reais, with a market cap of 33.8 billion. So we started investment thesis with a hold recommendation and a target price of 112.70 reais, which brings an upside of 80.6%. Our investment thesis is based in 4 main pillars. The first one being a promising sector with a fast-growing market that benefits heavily from the demographic trends and is heavily income influenced. Also, we have flawless execution shown by an accelerated and sustainable organic growth, which is sustained by a strong and experienced management. Also, space for margin gains to the sales mix and weakening competition, and also opportunities for store maturation and operational leverage. But last, we show readiness for industry trends shown by the popular segment entrance, and also a better line experience and more complete healthcare service. Now, Leandro is going to tell a little bit more about the first pillar.
Well, the first pillar tells us that Raia Drogasil is positioned in a very promising sector. To begin, Brazilian pharma retail sector shows a resilient result in track record with a CAGR of 9.8% in sales by volume since 2009. There's an expectation of Brazil hold a position on the top 5 most important countries. Top 5 most important countries for pharma sales in the world. This is caused because there is a gradual growth of elderly population when looking into the country's aging distribution, which might reflect as bigger consumption of medicines. In addition, there is a mid-term catalysis that sustain the growth of Brazilian market and the health expenditure per capita. The historically low interest rates with the 4.5% expectation by the end to the 2019 and the low inflation with a flat growth by the next years will be as boost to the power of the consumption of families. Besides that, in comparison to other countries with more developed market, like USA, Brazil has a small penetration on generics, representing only 46% in sales by volume. So there's a space for growth.
The second pillar is about flawless in execution. RD has executive members with many years of experience. We can say about Antonio Piponzi, the board chairman, that was president of Drogasil for 28 years, and he was responsible for expense from 7 to 700 stores for Brazil. As families, we see that the family still have power to make decisions. At the end of 2021, 30% of their shares will be under lockup. That will bring a sell pressure in the future. About market share, we see that Drogasil is gaining ground in Brazil, especially in Northeast. His performance outstanding, his main competitors independent players that, despite having joined forces to reduce costs, are still losing market share in the last years. Here we see the growth of the pharmaceutical market trend since 2007, and we see that comparison to highest competitors, Raia still have the greatest growth about number of stores and revenue CAGR. It's expected that the plans of expansion from Raia could cause a decrease on productivity per story due to the large number of stores that is still in process of maturation. However, the chart shows that the productivity has only increased, as well as the gap between his main competitors, which shows the efficiency of Raia. The main driver of revenue of Raia is the increase of number of stores, followed by the average ticket. But the negative traffic per store shows that Raia Drogasil is having problems with cannibalization, but this problem has been remediated in the recent quarters.
The third pillar talks about space for margin gains. Since 2012, the company has shown a big power of bargaining with suppliers, which has improved its gross margin, but with a pressure in 2017 due to a more competitive market and to a steep rise in drug prices. This has also affected mature store sales that hasn't been able to overcome inflation in the period. However, we've seen that this scenario may slow down since some large chains hasn't been able to maintain a rapid pace of growth. And another driver to margins is the more presence of generics in the product mix, since this segment has better margins than other products. And also, taking a look at the maturation curve of stores, we see that since more mature stores have better margins, the maturation process and also the slowdown of the organic growth may improve the EBITDA margin of the company in the next years. And also, we analyzed the unit economics of a pharmacy of the group, and we see that there are two main fixed costs related to labor and to rent. And as the G&A is related to them, with the growth of the revenues, that G&A may be diluted in the long term. It can be also seen by the good levels of operating leverage that may improve the EBITDA margin in next years. The fourth pillar talks about the position of Raia in future trends of the industry. And we see that since the company has invested into super popular stores, that may be able to reach new segments of market. And also, following the example of some business in the United States, the company has been able to gain insights about the people with its PBM and also its digital channels.
We know that Raia has really great prospects of growth and profitability, but how can you translate that in numbers? First of all, we are assuming that Raia will grow 240 stores in the following 4 years and 150 on the other 4 years. Getting, along with the maturation of these stores, a CAGR of 10.9% by 2027. As I already said, the EBITDA margin for the long term might come to 11.3%, and when we projected a opening capex per store and the renovation capex per store to grow in line with inflation. We also see that the maturation of the distribution centers and the logistics operation in the regions that Raia is already in spatial will make inventory days to come to historical lows of 95 days and the cash conversion cycle to 45 days. We made an approach evaluation in the DCF method with a beta of the leverage beta of the sector of 0.68, reaching a cost of equity of 10% and a cost of debt of 7.2%, mainly related to the debentures of the company. So we get to a WACC of 9.6%, and with a perpetuity rate of 6%, we get to a price target of 112.7 and implied upside of 8.6%. And all this value to the shareholders is shown by the strong operation cash flow conversion, the strong free cash flow generation, and the high dividend payouts in the medium term. We also made the NPV sanity check, knowing that Raia Drogasil is made by a little, small, and fast-growing business, the pharmacies. So we used the WACC to come to a fair value of each pharmacy, and we summed the current portfolio of the pharmacies of the Raia Drogasil, and we summed with the stores, the pharmacies that will already be open, and we subtracted the non-stores expenses, such as corporate and freight expenses. So we came to a shy 2.7% of upside that we think that shows that the price of Raia Drogasil shows that the growth of the company is already priced in. We see that the company is trading at a PE historical peak, and when we look to other healthcare players here in Brazil, we see that these high PE multiples with a not so high ROE in 2020 expected shows that the value opportunity is very limited. We also see that the end of the lockup in 2021 of the shareholders of 30% of their shares for the controlling family may generate selling pressure. We also made a Monte Carlo simulation that showed that with some key indicators such as productivity and stores opening, but did not conclude any clear scenario. So we reiterate our hold position, knowing that it's a premium executing company, but with the growth and profitability already priced in. So the main risks, we think that is the fiercer competition and the Amazon risks. And we think that the Amazon is a big threat to the USA players, as it has a really good logistics chain and a really high market penetration. But there is still a long way to go in Brazil, and players like Raia Drogasil are still getting prepared with investments in technology and innovation. Thank you very much, and we're open for questions.
You present a graph that shows the per capita expanding healthcare in Japan, Brazil, Argentina. My question is, Brazil is already very fair value with the peers. Do you make any assumption from that graph to your model, or you use this just as a data, or you use this for something that we can go to the Argentinian level or something like that? Is my question.
Yeah, I think the main point of this graph is showing that it's a market with still a lot of room for growth. And as Raia Drogasil has a really aggressive organic growth plan of like 240 stores on the next years, we think that having a market that has a potential for growth and showing that there is some gap between Brazil and other more developed countries show that this market could be improved and the expansion could be explained not only because of the competitive advantage, but for the market growth also.
You mentioned as well cannibalization as a risk for the investment case, right? And you also said that there were ways to minimize that impact. What would be those ways to minimize? How could the company minimize this cannibalization threat?
Okay, I think that the cannibalization it's a process it's natural in a competitive market, and in the long term, the companies that will outstand, like the numbers from Raia Drogasil of productivity show that they're expanding with some efficiency and giving value to their customers, showing that their brand really makes the difference. So in the long term, the competition now is getting the numbers from Raia Drogasil to get a little lower than they could be, because the competition is very, very fierce. But we think as Raia Drogasil is showing that it can spend in a more sustainable way, we think in the long term the cannibalization, the more efficient players like Raia Drogasil will outstand, and the cannibalization process will be minimized on the long term.
So you expect the inventory days to decrease throughout time, right? I mean, even if the company gets more efficient, I tend to think that with time, more SKUs are added to the portfolio, and therefore it makes it harder for the company to turn over this inventory. Did you take that into account for that?
Yeah. You know, the thing of the expansion of Raia Drogasil is mainly because he's already in all regions. He is in the states with the highest presence of the market share of the sector, and the main opportunity, the main organic growth will be mainly on the same markets that they are already located. So what we think is that like the store inventory days, like the days that the product is in the stores, won't change that much, but the time that the product goes to the distribution center, to the pharmacy, will get lower when you have a higher concentration of more pharmacies per distribution center, and you can put more products. You can put more products faster to the pharmacies.
One question: if you have a hold, if you could only have a buy or a sell rating, would it be a buy or a sell rated company?
I think it would be a buy, because even if the price is very high compared to another companies in Brazilian market, we see that the business is aligned with market trends, not only in Brazil, but also to trends that may come to Brazil, taking, for example, other countries, as we said before. And also the management of the company may bring they to gain these results and bring this to make this price, to convert this in cash flow to the future and improve its margins. And so I believe it would be a buy.
And also, like our model, we made the assumptions about the strategy that Raia is doing today, but we know there are some non-priced upsides, like international expansion, a deeper e-commerce penetration in a market that we don't know exactly what will be the size of this market. So we think that there's a company that can execute very well, but in the strategy that they're doing today, they're in a fair price, but maybe some upside after.
I want to talk about top-line growth in this particular slide. So we see that the CAGR from 12 to 18 was 18.5%, and then you project from 19 onwards that this CAGR will be 10.9, which is almost half of the historical revenue growth. How did you arrive at such a fall in revenue expansion? Did you explicitly forecast store openings and same-store sales? Because it seems like a big drop, yeah. Could you just explain that to us, please?
Okay, yeah, we projected the store opening. The store opening, it's a net store opening of 220 for the next 4 years and 160 for the other 4 years. And we assume that like in the next 2 years, I'm not finding that, but in the next 2 years, the mature same-store sales will outpace inflation like 10 base points, something like that, because we know that we came from a time where Raia Drogasil could not outpace the inflation. But in the long term, we think the mature same-store sales will get in line with inflation, and this revenue upside is mainly due to this. We have a model for the store and a model for the maturation store. We projected how many stores will be open. We projected how long they will mature with the maturation curve, and we made the mature same-store sales to grow and like the expenses to grow in reasonable term also.
Do you expect margins to fall as the company expands? Because it's going to expand in areas that are not that attractive, let's say a bit the margins?
We believe it can be a pressure for these factors, but also, as we said before, some factors for the margin gains, such as more presence of generics in the product mix, and also can we go back my slides, please? And the generics and the good levels of operating leverage in the long term, this may improve these margins. So I think that it may balance these factors of spending in other regions.
Yeah, and we think that the past years were very tough years for competition. So like the gross margin was affected because of that, and we think that in the recent quarters, what was shown, like the growth of Raia Drogasil, it's really outstanding all of their peers, showing that the growth that they did wasn't very as sustainable as the growth that Raia Drogasil is doing, because he has the management has the knowledge to know the best opportunities to expand and do it very efficiently.
You mentioned that if it was not a hold, it would be a buy. But on the other hand, what would be the reasons for you to be more pessimistic about the company? If I had to look into, as an investor, I had to look into 2 factors, what would be that factor that I should monitor? And be careful if they turn negative.
Okay, I think the most difficult driver for Raia to be achieved is the organic growth that it's really aggressive. It's 220 stores on the net stores on the next 4 years. That seems a lot given the actual store base of 2,000. That's already a lot. But we are projecting that the market will expand, will keep expanding, and Raia will keep being a very good executor in organic growth. So knowing if these numbers can be achievable, it's really difficult. And I think the other thing is that the stores are very price sensitive relative to inflation. So they have a lot of operation leverage. Like mainly of their costs are fixed, like rent and labor costs. And if they cannot sustain the amateur same-store sales, it will be very bad for their financials.
Good afternoon. we would like to begin our presentation by talking about our investment thesis. We base our investment thesis in Raia Drogasil's solid and consistent top-line performance. As an example, net revenues have been growing at double digits. Very optimistic top-down drivers. Also an example, population aging and increased health expenditures. A market leader consolidated position, which is seeing 13% market share, leaving room for growth in the second quarter. A head start gap, which can be explained by the way Raia Drogasil has captured and is capturing market trends ahead of time. A skilled senior management and impressive historical results, proven track record that leaves no execution doubts, and a well-behaved costs, expenses, and debt structures. For instance, an impressive control over margins, low leveraging. With that in mind, we would like to issue a buy recommendation for price objective for year-end 20 of PRL 114.1 and an upside of 12%. Important to note, however, that the stock is currently trading at an all-time high valuation, so there's less room for upside.
Rafael, what about RD highlights?
Well, the following diagram represents a Raia Drogasil logistic process in Brazil. Raia Drogasil relies on in the industries to get the products and then drive it from the distribution centers to the stores, where it became revenues to retail.
RD is the largest player in Brazil with a wide margin. It has more than 1,800 stores, which is 49% more than the second largest player, Drogaria São Paulo. In terms of revenue, the company made 14 billion reais in 2018, again, roughly 50% more than Drogaria São Paulo. The primary source of revenue for RD is that of prescription medicine, which is comprised of branded and generic drugs, and represents 55% of the company's revenue. RD has a market cap of 37 billion reais, and in the 12 months period between October 2018 and October 2019, the company's stock rose by more than 40%, whereas the Bovespa index went up by 22%. RD's 9 distribution centers means it can reach 97% of the Brazilian consumer market. RD is also leader in market share with 12%, but it's important to note that most of the market, 47%, is comprised of independent pharmacies.
Thanks, Marcelo. João, can you talk about industry, please?
Of course, Juan. About the industry, we see the aging of population in Brazil. The Brazilian elderly population is approximately to grow 9 million people, and we know that population, the elderly population, spends 4 times more than the youngest population with the prescription medicines. About the concentration, the Brazil have a low concentration market, and we know the 5 largest pharmacy has 28% of market share, and RD has 13% of it. It means the RD has room to grow internally. Generics are growing, and we see in 2018 the generics represents 34% of selling in prescription medicines past the brands one. Logistics, Brazil has a big territory, and we see a logistics with advantage. And Raia Drogasil has 9 centers of distribution, and it's building more too in Northeast and São Paulo, and can supply almost all territory.
And what about financials, Bruno?
Sure. Important to highlight here that Raia Drogasil is maximizing current assets to more than satisfy short-term payables, which is seen by the current ratio of 1.58 in the second quarter. Company has also been displaying an aggressive and unstoppable appetite for growth, can be seen by the growth capex growing constantly over the time period. That is mostly long-term. Management likes to keep a close grip around it, which is reflected in an impressive control over leveraging represented by net debt to EBITDA. Important to highlight that Fitch Ratings considers Raia Drogasil a AAA credit rating. The company has also been presenting a distinguishable growth trend in a double-digit CAGR over the time period. It's also been displaying a well-behaved structure of costs as a percentage of gross revenues and of operating expenses as a percentage of gross revenues, even amidst an aggressive growth strategy. EBITDA is rapidly increasing with minor impact on margin. Consistent returns are shown and a positive earnings trend presented by earnings per share.
And about our valuation model, Bruno.
Important to highlight that our price objective was based on a DCF model projected for 7 years and a long-term perpetuity growth rate of 5.5%. Our cost of equity of 9.97% is weighted by a cost of debt of 6.8%, resulting in a WACC of 9.29%. Important to highlight that marginal WACC changes have high impact in our price target. For instance, a 10 beeps increase would increase our price target by 37.2%. Please, Juan, talk about Monte Carlo analysis.
Understand the sensitive of the model to the WACC. We vary its value by 15% in a normal distribution, and the zone of the fundamental main variables with our model. In general terms, we put 3 points that we consider fundamental to our valuation: WACC, number of stores, and revenues. And we simulated 10,000 different cases to support our valuation and our price target. But what does the chart represent? The simulation demonstrated 100% of the cases simulated, and 64% of the cases, for example, represent the number of cases
You issued it by probability.
Exactly.
Thank you, Juan. Moving on to our main valuation assumptions. We perceived an aggressive opening strategy that could reach a peak around the 3,000 stores mark. A growing competitive environment that should cause same-store sales to plummet over time. And the focus on generic may take a toll on its margin advantage of minus 540 beeps over the time period. Important to highlight how EBITDA margin could decrease over time, minus 160 beeps, amidst an aggressive growth strategy. And yields to face an increasing trend, both free cash flow yield and free cash flow to firm yield, as the company generates more cash flow. Management is well capable of creating value for company and shareholders when we compare return on invested capital to a WACC of 9.29%. Corroborated by a decreasing multiples trend over time for EBITDA and price to earnings.
Rafael, but what if our projections are wrong?
Well, we see both upside and downside risk to our valuation. We divided it in operational risk, macroeconomic risk, and sector risk. As you can see, we priced macroeconomic deterioration for a risk. Brazil currently passes through a structural fiscal imbalancing, and that negatively affects Brazil GDP growth and therefore retail. We did a simulation with multiple scenarios of GDP growth and Selic rate, and we noted that without GDP growth, public debt doesn't stabilize. Other two main risks to our valuation, upside risk, are larger generic growths than we expected and bigger opening source than we expected via acquisition or opening by Raia Drogasil. Both could link to a higher price than we calculated.
I'd like to thank you for our presentation, and now we'd like to move on to questions and answers. Thank you very much.
To the notebook.
Go over there.
To move the slides.
Aqui mesmo.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to pose two questions. First, you mentioned that you think the increased amount of generics is going to put some pressure on margins. Could you elaborate on that, since it's not intuitive for me why does that happen, since generics tend to have higher margins, not lower margins than branded medicines? And I'll ask the second question later.
Sure. Just to make sure that I understood it correctly, you mentioned that the generic growth would put pressure on margins. It's not exactly what I meant. Yeah. Probably was a poor choice of words. In the sales mix, we projected that initially generic would have 12% of the entire sales mix, which is seen here. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it correctly. And through the time horizon, it would increase because the company would take opportunity on this advantageous margin. However, with time, this factor that could improve margins would be offset by increasing competition. You can see in Brazil that competition has been increasing, and then you can see on the mixed margin here on the side that initially a 62.4% margin would drop to 57%. Not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
And the next question is regarding the comparison of return on invested capital and return on equity that you have on slide 49. We see in your projections a big drop in return on equity, which is not followed by a similar drop in return on invested capital. And it's quite unusual that the return on equity is quite substantially lower in the last year of the projection. Could you elaborate on that? Why does that happen, and does it make sense for the company to lever up to have a lower return on equity?
Sure, I understand your question. The main point here is, well, return on equity, as you mentioned, is decreasing over time. However, return on invested capital is increasing. So it's an opposite effect, mainly due to the company's aggressive growth strategy, store opening strategy, and we projected at a certain period of time where this growth strategy would actually switch. So there will come a time, according to the company, that they will reach a 3,000 stores mark, and when that time comes, they may invert their strategy. However, as you pointed out, so when the company leverages itself out, it should see more return. However, over the time period, we noticed, based on our valuation and based on our estimations, that the growing competitive environment and the other forces combined could lead to a lower return on equity. So that's how we wanted to capture that trend over the time period.
But why only on return on equity and not on return on invested capital? Because if it was an operational issue, return on invested capital will be impacted as well.
Yeah. Well, to our understanding, because the company maintained in our projections the same debt level as the last period that we projected, and we didn't apply a releveraging ratio, perhaps that it caused the ROIC to be a little unmatched with the return on equity. Perhaps we should reevaluate that. Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
You're forecasting a minor increase in your gross margin and your adjusted EBITDA. It goes up and then it falls. Why does that happen?
Sure. Apologize, but I'm going to answer that again. The EBITDA margin is shrinking as time goes by, mainly due to that strategy that we posed in our projections that the competitive environment would grow. And your second question was because the margins are dropping a little?
Your gross margin is expanding marginally.
Yeah, sure. Because we wanted to capture the way that the market would shift in terms of when it's growing, because as João said recently in the presentation, he said that the good scenario for us here was to capture the whole elderly population moving, and we wanted to capture that bigger demand. However, the bigger demand that's going to be captured by Raia Drogasil could be captured by competitors, and the way that the market competes itself against specific margins on generics, etc., we wanted to capture that in our model. Not sure I specifically answered.
In terms of risks to your investment case, what would be the biggest risk for the investment case? The two biggest risks for this investment case moving forward? And
I think
what the company do to minimize them?
I think one of the biggest risks is macroeconomic deterioration. Macroeconomic deterioration will impact the GDP growth and obviously retail. So this is one of the biggest risk. And I think the second one is I think in terms of keeping right the price, the right price of the stock. The generic sales growth. Maybe if generic sales growth more than we expected, more than we projected, or calculate or evaluation, our model will be wrong. By upside, but we'll be wrong.
Rafael, can we move to SWOT analysis to talk a little bit about the weaknesses?
one of the threats we linked is competition growth and in supermarket, in HPC, perfumery, cosmetics, entry of foreign competitors through M&A, and unfavorable changes in regulation. Então, governance impacting negatively our case.
When you made your WACC, I think it's 21%, 20-something percent debt, the remaining is equity. Do you consider the lease as a debt with the new IFRS 16, or you consider only the banking debt?
That's a good question. We used IAS 16. We didn't use the IFRS 17.
In your projections for SSS, I can see that in the year 2025, you expect same-store sales to grow at 2.4%. Do you perpetuate that growth?
Yes.
But that's below inflation. So you mean that the stores are not only gonna sell less, but they are not even passing on inflation to customers?
We actually based it on a couple of different aspects here. We wanted to capture when we're talking about long-term inflation, long-term growth rate for GDP, we wanted to capture the way that the trend would diminish as time goes by, and we wanted to project that in perpetuity because it would be important to reflect a higher competitive scenario. And we understand your question. However, not only, we didn't look specifically and only at same-store sales. There are a couple of other forces here at place. And with that in mind, when we projected it, we came to conclusion that our investment thesis would be up by.
Any particular reason do you made the projection of the split part of 7 years? Anything magic about 7?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we wanted to capture it we didn't want to create bias in our model as to capture the final projection in perpetuity with same-store sales booming, with a good competition. And in order to actually accurately compute this, we provided a Monte Carlo simulation where we, as Juan explained earlier, the revenue shifted, the walk shifted, the number of stores shifted, consequently impacting our same-store sales. And even with that in mind, after 10,000 simulations, we still remained at buy. So,
looking at the main drivers, positive drivers here, I see same-store sales, right, moving forward. Probably they're going to be better because stores are going to mature, right, once they start growing. So that's an important driver, I think. But there's a problem here, which is cannibalization. Could you talk a little bit about cannibalization, like when you put more stores, one store is going to steal sales from the other? How does that play out, and what could be the impact of that on same-store sales once the stores start to mature more and more?
We can see here that the concentration of the sector and the numbers of the stores in Brazil is not, how can I say, it's flat. The Northwest region, the South region, and the other region don't have the number of stores like South. And this is the Bruno's project that the Raia Drogasil can open stores in other places, and this cancel the cannibalization, you know?
It could be a growth outside Southeast Brazil.
How did you calculate your cost of debt?
Just a quick. So we base our cost of debt in a no rate to short-term debt of 1.35%, a bond rate to long-term debt.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan, and next to me are Mateus, Gustavo, and Cauê. We are Team Unicamp, and we are here to present our recommendation of Raia Drogasil. After our analysis, we achieve a strong buy recommendation of Raia Drogasil with an upside of over 22% from the closing price. Our entire analysis is based on 4 pillars: the well-positioned company in a favorable market, a multi-channel strategy, and excellent financial performance. RD are very born as a market share leader in 2011 by the merger between Drogasil and Raia. The results? 3.5 times gross revenue, 4.1 times EBITDA, and 2.6 times number of stores. These stores sell HPC, OTC, generics, and brands, with brands accounting for the largest percentage of gross revenue. RD has also 5 private labels, which focus on sustainability, healthy lifestyle, have better margins, and are expected to increase the auto service by 10%. In the middle of 2019, Onofre was acquired by RD, and the company is mainly known for its online expertise, such as big data. Ultimately, RD expects that the Onofre acquisition will enhance its omnichannel, a key part of the multi-channel strategy. With these facts, Gustavo, what can we say about our investment thesis?
Well, Alan, our investment thesis revolves around 4 main topics: industry scenario, sector drivers, competitive positioning, and RD approach. Starting with the industry scenario, retail is usually very affected by an economic downfall. However, the drugstore retail stands out for its resilience and has outpaced total retail in terms of sales for almost every year since 2011. As a result, the pharmaceutical market displayed a CAGR of 11.5% from 2011 to 2018. Besides, other than its resilience, the sector is also very fragmented. Moreover, we expect Brazil's drugstore market to grow 8% per year until 2023.
The second topic that supports our investment thesis is the sector drivers. The first one is the ongoing aging process of the Brazilian population, and it's notable after looking at the inversion process of the pyramid aging of Brazil. Besides, the expectation that Brazilian population of 65 years old or more will increase from 7 to 14%, and it happens 6 times faster than France's population.
But Mateus, why is that important?
That important because elderly people usually spend more money on medicines than younger people.
The second driver of the sector is about family income. There has been an improvement in socio-economic conditions in the last decade, with lots of people migrating from classes D to C and B. That's huge for the sector, considering that upper classes spend more on drugs and HPC products than lower classes. Furthermore, government has 2 main drug purchase programs, Farmácia Básica and Farmácia Popular. But even together, they just represent 3% of the entire pharmaceutical market, leading consumers to buy most of their drug necessity. Therefore, we did a linear regression between family income per capita and HPC and drug potential consumption.
The third sector driver is generics, which benefit consumers and retailers. For consumers, the benefits are a result of prices almost 6% cheaper than a branded version. To retailers, generic upside comes from the fact that they display a gross margin of 60%. Therefore, generic sales have outpaced the pharmaceutical market, and we believe there is even more room to expand.
The third topic that supports our investment thesis is the competitive positioning. To start it, I need to talk about the market. The drugstore market in Brazil is mainly composed by independent players and their associations, but there are 5 main players who rule the market, and look at them, we have RD as the leader.
Since the beginning of 2019, RD has opened more stores than all the other 4 largest chains combined. Besides, RD stores have historically been more productive, which gives them an advantage over any other player.
RD deals directly to the industry and has its own branded products, which strike better margins due to a verticalization process. It's also the largest player in this sector with 13% market share. For that reason, RD reaches a higher bargain power over its suppliers.
The last pillar of investment thesis is how RD approaches its business, focusing on a multi-channel strategy, combining the digital platform with the physical facilities.
The digital strategy is divided into 2 categories. The first one has the app and website, which combined have more than 12 million access. In addition, a greater portion of this access has turned into actual orders, which results in a gross of sales of 161% from 2017 until 2019. The app and website are also part of their omnichannel strategy, which is available to every single store, has grown 620% since it was implemented, and has more than 780,000 products withdrawn at the store.
The last part of the digital strategy relies on its large database, with more than 34 million active clients, which allows RD to adapt its strategy to any region, always focusing on the client.
RD is present in all regions over the country, and it's concentrated in the Midwest and Southeast regions, especially in the city of São Paulo, and it has an expansion plan focused on North and Northeast. RD physical structures consist basically on distribution centers and stores, and some stores work as small distribution centers, which reduce capex and optimize capillarity, resulting in a faster and cheaper shipping system. Historically, RD has been showing in constant growth with 13% CAGR, and for the next 2 years, RD predicts to open more 480 new stores.
We believe in a healthy expansion for the next years, based on the ramp-up of stores, which takes 5 years to the store achieve the maturity. It means that a store opened 4 years ago now is generating enough cash to sustain another expansion plan. And furthermore, RD with a bigger number of stores and increasing the same store sales, RD is going to have a healthy free cash flow. And Cauê, how same store sales affect the financials?
Well, Mateus, from 2016 to 2018, this indicator suffered a fall, but it had a very positive twist in 2018, and we believe that it will keep this trend.
Why it happens?
Because of 3 reasons: omnichannel, adaptability, and strategic location.
Plus, net revenue has 2 main drivers: the number of stores and the efficiency of each store.
With greater investment in capex as a result of more open stores, RD was able to reduce costs because of economy of scale, which increased its gross margins.
For the EBITDA and the net income, we predict that it will grow with an even better margins as a consequence of stores maturation, economy of scales, and higher generic penetration.
Compared to the main national peers, RD has the best gross revenue and EBITDA margins, but that analysis is not restricted to Brazil. When set side by side with other drugstore retailers from the United States, RD still holds better metrics, this times a higher return on invested capital.
And Gustavo, is that all?
No, it's not. All those results come from a healthy company with the lowest net debt to EBITDA ratio. But Mateus, what about our model?
Our model is based in 3 pillars. The first is the healthy free cash flow to firm to the next 10 years, even with the expansion plan. After, we did the walk and we achieved that walk of 10.13%. And the last is the perpetuity growth rate of 5.5%, which achieves our target price. To reaffirm our target price, we did a sensitivity analysis to our model, and 68% of those scenarios give us a buy recommendation.
Looking at EV to EBITDA and PE, someone could argue that RD is not a worthwhile investment. But historically, RD has higher multiples than the sector, and note that the price kept rising. And now, Alain, what about the risks?
We would like to highlight 2 main risks. The first one is the drug price regulation inside the regulatory risks. The other is the other retailers being able to sell drugs inside the market risks.
So, let's slow down a little bit and rewind our presentation from the beginning. RD has 4 main pillars:
an excellent positioning,
a favorable market,
the best multi-channel strategy,
and a great financial performance.
With low risks.
So, should we lose this opportunity just because of high multiples? Thank you.
Okay, so my first, I would like to ask a question about your perpetuity growth, which is composed of 1.5% growth and 4% inflation, right? Don't you think 4% inflation is a little high for perpetuity, since the central bank is already changing its target inflation to 3.5, and it's supposed to lower this target going forward?
Analyzing the return of the economy of the Brazil, we think that the inflation will be higher as a consequence of the.
We also believe that, given that and result starting from the fact that Brazil's economy will increase, we expect the central bank to increase to a higher level the inflation target.
Looking for your WACC, your cost of debt is higher than your cost of equity. Why make a debt if you have a cost of debt higher than the cost of equity? You might elaborate a little bit on that?
It happens. The cost of debt is higher than the cost of equity, but because of that, Raia Drogasil have 9.96% of equity and only 30% of debt. This is the capital structure of the Raia Drogasil.
Because of a low leverage level for Raia Drogasil, we can consider that the risk of investing in this company is lower, which would imply that a KE is lower.
Looking at the breakdown of branded drugs and generics, I mean, Raia Drogasil today has a big share of branded drugs, right, in their mix. And moving forward, I think we all expect that to change a little bit, right? What are the implications of those changes? I mean, there is a positive one, which is higher margin, but would there be a negative one as well, since those are cheaper drugs and people are not going to consume more? It's just a change from branded to generics. What would be the negative impact of that move? I can see the positive, which is higher margin, but would there be a negative as well?
I mean, if you think that generic suppliers are less concentrated than branded suppliers, and considering that generics is going to be a greater part of Raia Drogasil brand portfolio, they are also going to be more, how can I say, they're going to be more affected by this reason. And consider that branded versions, the price is cheaper, that is also beneficial for Raia Drogasil.
You don't see average tickets going down because of that. The average ticket, it's what the person spends on the drugstore. Won't that be lower as well? Because I, as a consumer, we spend less money because it's going to be cheaper to buy that, and as a consequence, total sales and total EBITDA will drop or not.
I think that it's a trending. The penetration of generics in Brazil is a trending, and we have to be prepared for this. In general, as you said, we have a better margins selling generic drugs. One point that we can pay more attention is that being very concentrated in this product. So if you just sell this kind of product, the percentage of sales could be very concentrated on them. But in general, the cost of this product is lower to Raia Drogasil and is lower to consumers. So Raia Drogasil has a very good space to vary this price and be very prepared to be very well positioned in the market. So I think we have space to work on this kind of product, and it can bring us more, can bring us a very good margins.
In your, there's a chart, you have EBITDA growth and EBITDA margin. There's a valley in 2026. Why is that? There.
Here, where is the year that you...
2026, 2025, I mean 2025.
Yeah.
At the margin.
Here, at the 25-26, it's the time that we predict a new expansion plan of Raia. At the expansion plans of Raia Drogasil occurs in 5 years. The first occurs at 2020, the next occurs in 2025, and the other occurs in 2030. And when occurs the expansion plan, the maturity of stores will decrease and margin decrease too.
Okay, so you're forecasting that the company will grow in erratic. It's not going to be constant. It's going to have a big growth, slow down, big growth, slow down.
It could be constant. Hydrogazil has been open more and more stores constantly, but we believe that respecting this cycle, the cash generation will be more health for the company. So respecting this, and we use this cycle as an assumption for our model, we believe that Hydrogazil don't need to be more leveraged. So the company could be very healthy respecting this cycle.
Even because if they grow every year, like if they have an expansion plan every year, there's a higher risk of store cannibalization, for example.
You mentioned as one of the risks a PBM, right? Could you elaborate on that? Does a PBM pose a threat to Hydrogazil, especially if they have a PBM in-house?
The PBM actually is a reality nowadays because there are the PBM's universe. But actually, we see the PBM as don't impact margin so much, and this we believe that it won't change the situation of RD's actually positioning. So the PBM we don't see as a very risk, a very high risk.
What is your forecast for return on invested capital on perpetuity? Or near perpetuity, it doesn't matter.
No, we don't need the return on investment in the perpetuity.
Do you ever have return on equity? Return on equity?
We need to calculate this, but
okay, that's okay. Thank you.
Do you see any threat of a outsider enter the local market and start to grow, and that will be negative, obviously, for Hydrogazil?
Actually, our main risk is the M2 risk, which is the risk of other retailers selling drugs, which is huge because if that's approved, other retailers like supermarkets are going to be able to sell drugs, so the number of competition is going to increase. However, even though it's the risk of the highest impact, is the one with the lowest probability.
Besides, we see the American CVS company came to Brazil and it bought Onofre, and nowadays Onofre was bought by RD, and so we see RD as a good competitor in this market as well.
What would be the maximum market share you think Hydrogazil could have? Today they have 13. What would be the maximum you think that they could reach? Would be still reasonable?
I think in a very ideal scenario, we can imagine that the main peers of Hydrogazil are concentrated in Southeast regions and Midwest regions. So considering an ideal scenario, these peers could establish and Hydrogazil gets and achieve a bigger percentage of market share. So considering this, Hydrogazil would increase and get more market share, considering that those peers.
We are Team Poly, and today we'll be presenting our investment thesis on Hydrogazil.
But first, what is Haya?
Hydrogazil is the largest drug retailer in Brazil, both in store number and in revenue terms. It had a strong footprint throughout the country, but its core remains São Paulo, accounting for half of its revenue.
Of Haya's 4 product groups, generics have the best margins, but most of the revenue comes from branded. The company is known for its outstanding execution, and since the merger in 2011, net income increased impressive 260%, and stock prices rallied over 100% in the last 12 months.
So, is it time to invest in Haya?
No, Raia Drogasil is a great company, but that is now unlikely to surprise the market. Therefore, we issue a hold recommendation with a R$109 target price for the end of next year, resulting in an upside of 8.8%. The company seems to be priced to perfection, leaving investors with little margin of safety.
Our investment thesis is based on four main pillars: a promising industry, a prime competitive positioning, an ability to expand and face competition, and finally, a demanding valuation with both high growth and profitability already priced in.
Tell me, why is the sector so promising?
First of all, the industry is extremely resilient. Despite recent years' recession, it grew with a 12.8% CAGR, creating a significant spread to GDP. On the other hand, positive macro perspectives may also benefit the segment, since most of the spending is out of pocket.
Beyond the positive macro scenario, Brazilian demographics drives growth on the road ahead. Age pyramid is set to invert, and elders will represent a quarter of the population by 2060. They consume medicine twice as often and spend up to 4 times more than younger people.
And what is the takeaway here? Aging drives industry growth, as we can see in the strong correlation between market size and percentage of elders. An R-squared of 0.99 enables us to extrapolate this model and estimate market size for the next 5 years, obtaining a CAGR of 9%.
We also see the market fragmentation as an opportunity. We identified that top players hold 28% of the market, a level still much lower than those of countries like Mexico and Chile.
So, the industry will thrive and there is room for consolidation, but how is Raia positioned? Let's first take a step back to understand how a consumer chooses a pharmacy. We see that the primary decision factor is price, followed closely by convenience.
In the pharmacy business, low product differentiation and weak customer loyalties drives companies to compete on pricing. In our field research, when analyzing a 20-item basket, we saw no company holding a clear edge.
Therefore, convenience is where the company stands out. We conducted a geospatial analysis to evaluate Raia's store position in São Paulo. We used QGIS software and IBGE data. We plotted all stores from Droga Raia and Drogasil, as well as the PSP and Pague Menos. We concluded that Raia positioned its stores in the most attractive neighborhoods, with the highest percentage of elders and average income. As for the rest of Brazil, we see the same pattern repeated. Raia positioned its stores in the most attractive neighborhoods.
And what does this mean for the company?
Raia has the highest sales per square meter and the second highest average ticket in the whole industry. But this prime positioning comes at a cost. These attractive neighborhoods are also highly competitive, and we see São Paulo as a consolidated market and therefore not an expansion vector for Raia, which is deconcentrating stores openings and moving into new regions.
And what about e-commerce?
Raia is also well positioned in the segment, especially after recent acquisition of Onofre. It has the highest share of online drug retail traffic and a well-developed omni-channel that benefits from store capillarity. However, e-commerce is still little representative, accounting for only 2.5% of Raia's revenues.
It seems that Raia has a strong positioning, but what else makes it a top pick to surf the sector's tailwind?
Raia has unmatched organic growth capabilities. It has opened nearly 900 stores in the last 4 years, all sustained by strong and consistent cash flow generation. The investment to open a single new store is not very high, but maturation curves delay break-even points, making it hard to cover for capex in the first years.
Other players even try to keep up with Raia's expansion pace, but as they faced margins and cash flow deterioration, they had to raise their leverage to expand. Eventually, their expansion momentum was lost, while Raia was able to keep its rhythm.
And what explains this difference?
Prime store locations, along with outstanding store-level efficiency, explains how Raia maintained good results while expanding. In a visit to a drugstore, an average Raia customer spends R$70, leaving to the store 11 in pre-tax profit per checkout. Pague Menos in the PSP not only have smaller average tickets, but also lower store margins.
Overall, Raia has a higher EBITDA per store and a superior top to bottom line growth conversion, as evident through its OPEX leverage. To better understand store profitability and if organic growth pays off, we simulated the opening of a new store. Despite our conservative same-store sales assumptions, we arrived at an IRR of 20.6% and a ROIC of 21.8%, both comfortably above cost of capital. Expanding is indeed the way to go.
Okay, it's proven that Raia can grow organically, but what else makes the company leave competition behind?
The competitive landscape is challenging and a new threat has emerged. Small and medium independent drugstores started gathering associations, represented by Febrafar, seeking to improve store execution and bargaining power with suppliers. They managed to offer lower generic prices, and as a result, Raia lost share in the segment. It was forced to strike back to aggressive discounts in order to regain participation in generics.
But is this strategy sustainable?
We ran a generics price war simulation in order to understand the impacts of more aggressive pricing policies. We analyzed gross margin impacts from stronger generics discounts for Haya, independent players, and associated chains, taking into consideration generics' different penetration in their product mixes.
The result was clear. Haya Drogasil's margins are less harmed by stronger generic discounts, allowing the company to withstand longer and win this battle.
And what about the returns?
ROIC does not set Haya apart from competition though. We see that all players have tight NOPAT margin due to a low consumer advantage. Although invested capital turnover seems to be in line, all of Haya's possible edge is taken away by its low fixed asset turnover. We see that Haya's conversion of capex per store opening into new revenue is actually lower than those of its competitors.
But wait a minute. Until now, we presented a company that's well positioned within a very promising sector. Why then the hold recommendation?
Overall, we do not see in the near future any major price catalyst able to justify incurring risk of buying the stock, which we believe is already close to its fair value.
Let's now take a closer look into our premises. We projected a recovery in mature same-store sales, reaching 5.1% in 2022. Store openings will keep going strong, slowing down only 2021 onwards. We expect more than 1,000 new stores in the next years and projected under a 4-year maturation curve. As a result, net revenue will maintain a CAGR of 15%, which is in line with consensus estimates.
Gross margins should suffer short-term pressure due to higher discounts in generics, but the private label penetration and a slight growth of generics in the mix should boost it in the long term. Most of SG&A is fixed, so the maturation of stores and mature same-store sales above inflation levels should drive significant gains in EBITDA margin, which consensus sees as well. Expenses were forecast linked to the store openings as well as macro indicators.
In balance sheet projections, we highlight a gradual reductions in DIO levels, creating a slight improvement in cash conversion cycle. Working capital is set to follow store expansion curves, growing initially with a 14.5% CAGR and then decelerating alongside expansion.
Capex will follow the same trend. Furthermore, store maturation will boost cash flow generation, allowing Haya to finance its expansion, as CFO surpasses CFI.
So, you're telling me all these projections have already been reflected in the current price. Is that so?
Yes, in our DCF, we projected the FCFF for the next 10 years. We used a 0.72 beta to arrive at a 10.8% WACC. In perpetuity, our assumptions were a 6% growth rate and no tax benefits.
Even though the bullish assumptions, our upside was only modest. We arrived at 109.8 target price and 8.8% upside over October's end price. Our recommendation was consistent even through a WACC and perpetuity growth sensitivity analysis.
On a multiple analysis, Haya seems rather expensive. PE is at historical maximum, trading over 2 standard deviations above average. Not even aggressive growth estimates justifies the stock price premium, as can be seen through the PEG ratio.
And what if our projections are wrong?
Our bull and bear case scenarios target price range from a 19% downside to a 30% upside.
In our Monte Carlo simulation, we ran over 10,000 different scenarios, arriving again at the hold recommendation for 62% of them.
The greatest risk to our model comes from major same-store sales fluctuation. In fact, our tornado analysis showed that indeed same-store sales is the most volatile premise to our target price.
We thank you for your attention and now we're open to questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You mentioned that you project same-store sales in 2022 to reach 5.1%. Is that the number for all of the stores or only the stores?
That is mature same-store sales.
Okay, thank you.
Just complement his question on the same. Hello? You sure? The third time. Same-store sales, again. You have stabilization of same-store sales for mature stores. But overall, for the company, I think mature same-store sales will keep growing, right, as stores mature. What kind of total same-store sales are we going to see moving forward? Because as you said, I think that's the main risk for your hold recommendation, right?
We see that the percentage of maturing stores is going to decrease since store openings level as a percentage of total store base will decrease in the further years. So we expect that the increase in same-store sales because of maturing stores will be less relevant to total same-store sales.
Yeah, and actually, we when analyzing if our projections to major same-store sales were correct, we did a sanity check that we can see that in analyzing historical data, we can see that when analyzing revenue growth and the total sale area, we have the implied same-store sales, right? And about this implied same-store sales, we could arrive that our major same-store sales is correct. And for answering your questions, with our major same-store sales and showing that this historical multiple will maintain its relevance, we know that we'll be above 10%, for example, when stabilizing.
Okay, good.
Just a quick question. If a company that is profitable, the expansion you showed that is already priced in, shouldn't the company be more aggressive on the financial leverage? You use a WACC of 21% of that, the remaining is equity. Shouldn't they change a little bit? Don't you think that this can be become more aggressive on financial terms?
We believe that the main factor for the slowdown of expansion is not the lack of capital. It's the lack of capacity to absorb this aggressive expansion in the Brazilian market. So, in here we see the market distribution for Brazil. We see that São Paulo and the Southeast, as we have analyzed in our presentation, is already very saturated. It's not going to be a huge expansion vector. We see the South and the Northeast as very good expansion vectors, but they're not going to be as promising as São Paulo and the Southeast once were. The Northeast, we see that they, indeed, classes A and B on the Northeast have similar purchasing power, but there are only 7 million people in these classes compared to 20 million in the Southeast. So there is the ability to expand there won't be as a promising expansion vector as it was in the past. And also the South is a very competitive region. We have Anicei, we have Drogaria São João that are very strong, and also Panvel, which is a benchmark in the sector.
And about financial leverage, we see that the company recently have been slightly increasing their financial leverage, which allows a slight reduction in the cost of capital. But going forward, we see the cash flow generation will grow a little stronger due to maturation of stores, and we don't think the company will raise their leverage not a lot.
Yeah, other companies, they had to raise their leverage, as you can, as Pague Menos, that is above 3.5% net debt to EBITDA, because they were able to generate cash while expanding, as my friend said during the presentation. So as we can see right here, that the CFO will surpass CFI, we don't see the need of higher acquiring new debt to finance the expansion and working capital needs.
We apologize for this. It was correct when we sent the presentation.
So you present an IRR and ROIC estimate for new stores, and it's different. What is the difference between the calculation of IRR and ROIC?
Just a second, that will go. Actually, yeah, to explain. Yeah, we know the difference, but actually, we just go right here. We have an appendix to present. Okay, the unit economics. Sorry, just a second. Unit economics. The unit economics.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so here is how we did unit economics. So basically, we made the ROIC. We calculated by the major stores. So doesn't impact the marginal ROIC in this number. So we can see that it's 22%. And NPV value, we calculated based on our income statement and cash flow generations. So we have here company's guidance for example, CapEx, the initial investments, the store contribution. So we were able to, and for example, renovation CapEx is that after 5 years is half of the initial investment value. So we could able to calculate the cash flow, bring to present value, and then calculate the IRR.
And we brought it to present value by the company's cost
Yeah.
of capital.
To show that indeed it's affordable and that is good for the company.
Okay, thank you.
When it comes to the sales mix, there is today a big chunk of it is made up by branded drugs, right, compared to generics.
Yeah.
Moving forward, how will that change? And will that be positive or negative on balance? Because I see the positive, which is the higher margin, but it might also have a negative impact on average ticket. How do we balance that? What's your view on that?
First of all, we see a slight growth of generics in the mix. As we said before, generics is going on. There's a price war going on in generics, and Raia Drogasil lost share because of that price war. Not just because of the generics, but as a consumer goes to another pharmacy to purchase generics, they tend to not buy the other products that they bought beside generics when they went to a Raia Drogasil store. We see, as we said before, we see Raia Drogasil positioned towards the higher classes, mainly classes A and B, which consumes less generics. We don't see the strategies changing in the long term. So we see a slight growth of generics in their mix due to this aggressive discount policy that they've been implying, but we don't see generics gaining a very strong participation in their mix, not more than the current levels.
Yeah, so I mean the takeaway that although Raia is with this new strategy to open new stores, more popular stores, we don't see the major part of it coming at generic players. Their own company guidance say that they don't pretend to become a major generic player. So I think the impact on revenue, because generics are lower price, won't be so affected, but gross margin will be just a little affected by that. The major gross margin gains comes from private label penetration.
Okay. So if generics grows too much, that's actually a risk, not a.
Yeah, I think
not an advantage.
It's good for the margin, but we know that the market sees market has a bullish projection for Raia, and Raia has to keep delivering both in bottom line, so generic would help on that, but also in top line growth. So I think this market wouldn't see with good eyes that.
You have a chart here that ROIC is falling for Raia Drogasil, and you mentioned about the price wars. You mentioned that on historical price multiples, it's in close to all-time highs. Isn't this a sell company?
About ROIC, we see that Raia's ROIC is in line with peers. It has decreased recently. As you said, there was a generic price war, but we see that the main reason why Raia's ROIC is just in line with peers is because of marginal ROIC, which is lower than total mature store ROIC. So as we said, Raia is facing aggressive expansion, and this recent open stores with low marginal ROICs brings the total ROIC down. But we see this ROIC recovering in going forward as expansion pace slows a little bit down and stores mature. So we see a recuperation in Raia's ROIC going forward.
And just to complement, we believe this generic price war will impact in margins, but will impact more in the short terms for 2019 and 2020. But as we demonstrated before, Raia is able to do that, and we think that eventually the market will loosen up, as independent players and associated chains are unable to keep with this aggressive strategy. So we project, as we see here, the adjusted EBITDA will suffer from pressure in the short term, but as we said before, in the long term, store maturation and same-store sales above inflation will boost these margin improvements, and then that's why we don't think it's a sell recommendation.
Just to reinforce, we have an 8.8 upside, and the main, I think, would be more towards a buy than towards a sell, given our presentation. But the thing is, we don't see a margin of safety. We said in the beginning of the presentation that we believe investor needs a margin of safety. Sorry.
Pessoal, boa tarde, obrigado por estarem aqui. As apresentações foram espetaculares. A gente gastou bastante tempo e energia para chegar na lista dos finalistas, porque a gente viu que vocês deram duro, que vocês se esforçaram, que vocês apresentaram um ótimo trabalho. Tá? Então, novamente, fiquem muito felizes por serem finalistas, porque vocês já são campeões. Tá? Vocês merecem estar aqui e devem aproveitar, curtir o fato de serem finalistas aqui do maior CFA Research Challenge do hemisfério ocidental. Então, a salva de palmas a todo mundo. E a ideia é a seguinte, os juízes vão fazer alguns comentários, tá, sobre as apresentações, comentários genéricos. Em seguida, eu vou apresentar vamos chamar, o top 5. Eu vou falar quem foi o quinto colocado, quem foi o 4º colocado e o 3º colocado. Tá? Os 2 primeiros a gente vai anunciar, tá na mão do Mauro. E vai ser, obviamente, ao sorteio de quem vai sair primeiro, quem vai... o nome, o primeiro a sair, vai ser sorteado, e o segundo nome a sair vai ser sorteado, mas, obviamente, os vencedores já estão definidos. Tá? E foi bem difícil. Bem difícil ranquear vocês. Tá, então, vou passar as palavras para os juízes, para eles darem um feedback a vocês.
Rafa, quer vir aqui na frente? Só até por uma questão de filmagem, a gente combinou aqui na frente fica mais fácil.
Bom, pessoal, eu queria agradecer a participação de todos. As apresentações estavam muito boas, foi uma decisão difícil para a gente. Eu não sei vocês, mas eu me diverti bastante, foi muito legal, aprendi bastante sobre a empresa, vi algumas visões bem diferentes aí sobre a empresa. Queria parabenizar todo mundo, independente da sua equipe ser selecionada entre as primeiras, eu acho que vocês deveriam manter o bom trabalho que vocês vêm fazendo, e se é um assunto que vocês gostam, vocês deveriam investir nisso, vocês já investiram bastante tempo até agora. Obrigado a todos e boa sorte a todos.
Sem repetir coisa, parabéns para vocês, o trabalho foi muito bom. Como 2 dicas, uma dica de quem mexe com crédito, cuidem do lado do custo da dívida, etc., é sempre bom. Não é porque é de equity que isso fica abandonado. E 2, as apresentações estavam no nível melhor do que a perguntas e respostas. Se preparem para as perguntas e respostas, porque faz parte do conjunto todo isso. E, por fim, conselho de carreira, vale a pena fazer o CFA, é um ótimo certificado para ter. Pensem nisso, tão logo vocês se formem, a matéria está fresca, o primeiro ano já sai quase que sem estudar muito, mentira, mas... e depois eu acho que aí que você fez o primeiro mesmo, aí você não vai parar, tá bom? Parabéns para vocês.
Eu vou muito na linha do Fernando também. Eu acho que as apresentações foram muito boas. Eu já faço isso há alguns anos, né? Então, meu trabalho é ficar assistindo apresentações do Society por muito tempo. Então, eu acho que o nível da apresentação de vocês foi um nível muito bom comparado com o que eu vejo no mercado nesses últimos anos. Então, parabéns de novo. Acho que a dica do Fernando com relação ao Q&A é muito boa mesmo. Todo ano a gente vê apresentações excelentes, mas quando vem no Q&A é um pouquinho mais fraco, então acho que aqueles que se prepararam melhor para o Q&A levam vantagem. A decisão foi muito difícil, foi mais difícil hoje do que nos anos anteriores que eu participei, assim, estava muito próxima realmente, a gente teve um debate longo, como vocês viram. Então acho que estão todos de parabéns. Infelizmente tem que ter só 2 ganhadores, né? E a gente vai anunciar esses 2 em alguns minutos aí. Mas, de novo, obrigado pela presença, obrigado pelo esforço. Eu acho que quem gosta de fazer esse negócio tem que continuar, tem que ter CFA. É importante o CFA hoje em dia, não é nem mais se você vai seguir carreira no mercado financeiro, principalmente nessa área de análise de equities ou de portfolio management, eu acho que o CFA passou a ser não uma vantagem, mas uma necessidade, né? Quase como falar inglês antigamente, que era uma vantagem, hoje já todo mundo tem que falar inglês. O CFA está virando um pouco disso. Não é mais uma vantagem, mas é uma necessidade. Então, quem gosta de mercado financeiro, eu acho que tem que fazer, tem que seguir em frente. Bom, obrigado de novo e parabéns aí a todos.
Bom, pessoal, falar por último é sempre muito difícil, porque as principais mensagens todo mundo já abordou, mas eu acho que é importante dizer que a gente sabe o trabalho que vocês tiveram para passar por todo esse processo, desde o relatório aqui. É um momento de muito nervosismo, eu entendo. A gente fica nervoso por vocês, não é fácil.
Eu acho que só de vocês se proporem a fazer isso, de vocês falarem, não, eu vou fazer, você não está ganhando nota, não está ganhando dinheiro, não está sendo remunerado, mas eu quero enfrentar isso, eu quero fazer isso porque eu quero ter esse desenvolvimento na minha carreira, eu quero enfrentar esse desafio, eu quero chegar aqui na frente e encarar os juízes aqui, olhando, fazendo pergunta difícil em inglês, um cenário extremamente adverso.
Tem que pôr no currículo, né?
Tem que pôr no currículo, e cada vez que vocês enfrentam esse desafio, o próximo desafio fica mais fácil. Então, vocês estão seguindo no caminho certo. Eu acompanho o Radba, que eu acho que o caminho natural para vocês seguirem aqui é fazer o CFA, quem está interessado, quem quer seguir carreira. Eu acho que os valores do CFA, que é você estar constantemente se aprendendo, improving por conta própria, vocês só de estarem aqui já demonstraram que vocês querem. Então, é o caminho mais natural. Desejo muito sucesso a todos, as apresentações estavam de muito alto nível, e muito sucesso a todos, muita boa sorte.
Pessoal, então vou anunciar aqui o que todos que vieram aqui estão querendo saber. Então a gente vai anunciar o quinto, quarto, terceiro, depois o segundo e o primeiro, que está escrito ali no papel, misturados. É importante, o prêmio dos 2 melhores, a gente não vai anunciar quem foi o primeiro colocado e o segundo, a gente vai anunciar os 2 vencedores. O prêmio dos 2 vencedores é uma viagem com transporte aéreo e hospedagem pagos pelo CFA Institute para apresentar a tese de investimento da High Brasil na final regional. Tá? Lá vocês vão ter a oportunidade de ter contato com judges de outras regiões, vocês vão ter a oportunidade de fazer networking com alunos de outras regiões das Américas, e os melhores de Américas vão ser os finalistas globais, que acontece também em Nova York, e vocês vão poder assistir, ou, se tudo der certo, vocês vão ser os finalistas globais. Tá? Então vamos lá, vamos nessa. Eu vou anunciar aqui o quinto colocado. Tá? O quinto colocado é o Ita. Uma salva de palmas. Parabéns, pessoal. Parabéns. Parabéns.
Levanta, pessoal. Quando for, levanta.
Isso aí, levanta.
Agora, aí, parabéns.
Agora eu quero parabenizar o quarto colocado, que é a SPM. Parabéns a todos vocês, porque foi difícil. Terceiro colocado agora. Terceiro colocado é a FEA. Parabéns, pessoal. Parabéns. E agora os 2 vencedores.
Conforme prometido, né, misturado aqui. Então não sabemos quem é primeiro e quem é segundo. Mas, ok, vou te dar um papel.
Poli, parabéns. Falta aquele momento mais tenso, né? Insper, parabéns. Pessoal, novamente, quero dar parabéns a todos vocês. Vocês são vencedores, vocês são finalistas. Vocês merecem. Posta que vocês tiveram aqui no Facebook, coloca no currículo, porque isso é um diferencial competitivo no mercado de trabalho fabuloso. A gente vai mandar para vocês certificado de participação nominal para vocês. A gente vai mandar para o seu Faculty Advisor e vocês pegam com o Faculty nas próximas semanas. Tá? Muito obrigado, parabéns. E agora, cada equipe, as 8 equipes que vamos chamar assim, que não vão para Nova York, cada equipe vai ganhar um cristal. Então, vou pedir para cada uma das equipes se aproximar aqui à mesa, que a gente vai dar o cristal que pertence a vocês, pertence ao Faculty Advisor. E as 2 equipes vencedoras, a gente tem um troféu metálico que a gente vai entregar para vocês. vai tirar foto e depois a gente vai mandar uma placa metálica que vocês vão poder colar no troféu e guardar na estante de vocês para o resto da vida.
Ou seja, tem sessão
Parabéns.
de fotos agora. É isso aí.